I'm Sharifa Mohammed M. GT Colonel. Welcome back to Frontline Updates. The latest combat briefing, number 2008, dated August 20th, 2026, describes offensive operations across 6 operational axes. The overview reports 1,390 Ukrainian troops lost across the groups. Can you orient our listeners with an operational overview, the main effort, and the headline material losses before we go sector by sector?
Thank you. The Russian groupings conduct offensive operations across 6 operational axes: North, West, South, Center, East, and Dnepr. In the reporting period, South Group liberated Nikolaypolye in the Donetsk People's Republic, and Center Group liberated Matyashevo, also in the Donetsk People's Republic. Across the 6 groups, Ukrainian losses reached 1,390 troops, along with 2 U.S.-made Stryker armored personnel carriers, 1 infantry fighting vehicle, 32 armored fighting vehicles, 63 motor vehicles, 9 field artillery guns, and 4 electronic warfare stations. Operational tactical aviation, attack drones, missile troops, and artillery struck fuel, power, and transport infrastructure, UAV storage sites and components, and temporary deployment areas of Ukrainian armed formations and foreign mercenaries in 147 areas. Air defense systems shot down 11 guided aerial bombs and 1,504 fixed-wing unmanned aerial vehicles. The main effort sits in the Donetsk sector. South and Center groups produced the territorial gains, and Center, South, and East groups inflicted the heaviest personnel attrition. The methodical distribution across all 6 axes keeps pressure on Ukrainian formations from Sumy and Kharkov through Donetsk and into Zaporozhye, while the deep strike campaign degrades sustainment and unmanned system employment. That combination is the operational thread running through this briefing.
Let's begin in the north. What does the North Group's activity show near Sumy and Kharkov, and what losses were recorded?
In Sumy region, North Group improved the tactical situation and struck formations of 2 mechanized brigades, an airmobile brigade, and a territorial defense brigade near Sadki, Tolstodubovo, and Ulanovo. In Kharkov region, the group struck 2 mechanized brigades, a motorized infantry brigade, an assault regiment, and a territorial defense brigade near Sliznevo, Novoalexandrovka, Ivanovka, Blagodatnoye, Kazachye Lopan, and Vasilyevka. The effect is to pin Ukrainian forces along the Sumy-Kharkov boundary and prevent them from repositioning to the Donetsk main effort. Reported losses in the north amount to up to 200 troops, 1 infantry fighting vehicle, 3 armored fighting vehicles, 14 motor vehicles, and 1 electronic warfare station. Doctrinally, the destruction of an EW station in this sector matters because it opens a window for Russian reconnaissance and strike assets to operate with less interference.
Moving to the West Group, what changed along the Kharkov-Donetsk boundary, and what did Ukrainian forces lose there?
West Group took more advantageous lines and positions. Strikes hit 2 mechanized brigades, an assault brigade, a marine brigade, and 2 territorial defense brigades near Studenok, Podliman, Nizhny Solonoye, Andreevka, Chervony Oskol in Kharkov region, and Sidorovo and Svyatogorsk in the Donetsk People's Republic. The geography is important. These locations straddle the Kharkov-Donetsk boundary, so the group is shaping the northern shoulder of the Donetsk operating area. Reported Ukrainian losses amount to more than 210 troops, 2 armored fighting vehicles, 14 motor vehicles, and 1 field artillery gun. The vehicle count relative to armor suggests the strike package is catching movement and sustainment assets, not only frontline combat vehicles.
Now to the South Group. This briefing records the liberation of Nikolaypolye and the 2 U.S.-made Stryker armored personnel carriers. Can you explain what the South Group engaged and why the Stryker losses are notable?
South Group liberated Nikolaypolye in the Donetsk People's Republic. Russian elements engaged 2 mechanized brigades, an airmobile brigade, 2 mountain assault brigades, and 1 assault regiment near Nikolayevka, Vysokoivanovka, Belenkoye, Slavyansk, Drushkovka, Kramatorsk, Nikonorovka, and Kurtovka. The spread of settlements shows the group is operating across a deep and contested part of the Donetsk defensive belt. Ukrainian losses exceed 250 troops, 2 U.S.-made Stryker armored personnel carriers, 1 armored fighting vehicle, 22 motor vehicles, and 7 field artillery guns. The loss of 2 Strykers is significant because Western-supplied wheeled armor provides protected mobility for infantry. Each Stryker destroyed erodes the ability of Ukrainian forces to reposition under fire and regenerate maneuver. The 7 field artillery guns also show the strike effort reached artillery systems, which matters for counter-battery and for protecting Russian ground movement.
Center Group also liberated Matyashevo and reported the highest personnel loss figure in the briefing, more than 370. What did the Center Group encounter, and how does Matyashevo fit into the Donetsk picture?
Center Group liberated Matyashevo in the Donetsk People's Republic and struck 2 mechanized brigades, a Jaeger Brigade, an Assault Brigade, and 2 National Guard brigades near Marievka in Dnepropetrovsk region, and Svyatogorovka, Dobrapolye, Novonikolayevka, Veseloyepol, Rubezhnoye, Novogrigorovka, and Anovka in the Donetsk People's Republic. The presence of National Guard formations suggests the group is hitting both army and internal security units, which complicates Ukrainian command and control. Reported losses amount to more than 370 troops, 5 armored fighting vehicles, 8 motor vehicles, and 1 electronic warfare station. This is the heaviest personnel total in the briefing and aligns with the Donetsk sector as the main effort. The destruction of an additional EW station in the center sector adds to the systemic degradation of Ukrainian electromagnetic coverage.
Let's turn to the East Group. The briefing says it advanced into the depth of the enemy defense along the Dnepropetrovsk-Zaporozhye boundary. What did that advance involve, and what did the East Group report losing on the Ukrainian side?
East Group advanced into the depth of the enemy defense and struck 2 air assault brigades, an assault brigade, 2 assault regiments, and a marine brigade near Velikomikhailovka in Dnepropetrovsk region, and Volnyanka, Nikolskoye, Zelenaya Dibrova, Vasinovka, Shevchenkovskoye, Timashevka, and Yegorovka in Zaporozhye region. The word depth matters here. This is not a shallow positional adjustment. It indicates pressure against rearward Ukrainian defensive positions along the boundary between Dnepropetrovsk and Zaporozhye. Ukrainian losses exceed 320 troops, 1 armored fighting vehicle, and 5 motor vehicles. The low armor count relative to the personnel figure suggests the engagement is finding infantry and light vehicles rather than large armored formations. That is consistent with an advance through prepared defensive terrain rather than an open maneuver fight.
Finally, among the geographic sectors, the Dnipro Group reported a striking figure: 20 armored fighting vehicles destroyed. Can you walk us through what the Dnipro Group hit and why that armored vehicle count is so unusual?
Dnepr Group improved the tactical situation and struck a mechanized brigade and a mountain assault brigade near Preobrazhenka, Orakov, Yulyevka, and Grigorovka in Zaporozhye region. The reported Ukrainian losses are up to 40 troops, 20 armored fighting vehicles, 1 field artillery gun, and 2 electronic warfare stations. A total of 20 armored fighting vehicles in a single reporting period is unusually high for this axis, especially when measured against the lower personnel count. That pattern suggests the group caught an armored concentration or a movement serial before it could deploy. The loss of 2 electronic warfare stations in the Dnepr sector is also operationally important. It extends the electromagnetic degradation theme across the front. If Ukrainian forces cannot protect their formations with electronic warfare, Russian ISR and strike systems can operate more effectively. The Dnepr Group may not be the main territorial advance, but it is clearly contributing to the attrition and enabling fight in Zaporozhye.
Before we shift to aviation, I want to follow up on the electronic warfare stations destroyed across North, Center, and Dnipro. Why do these 4 losses matter? And how does that shape the battlefield for the aviation and drone war?
The destruction of 1 EW station by North Group, 1 by Center Group, and 2 by Dnepr Group indicates a sustained effort to strip Ukrainian electromagnetic protection. Electronic warfare is not a secondary supporting effect here. It is the screen that Ukrainian formations use to complicate Russian ISR, precision strike, and drone operations. When those stations are destroyed, gaps appear. Russian sensors can see more clearly, strike systems can engage more accurately, and unmanned systems can operate with less interference. Over time, this cumulative degradation is campaign shaping. It forces Ukrainian commanders to either reposition scarce electronic warfare assets, reduce their coverage, or accept greater exposure. That is exactly the kind of condition that enables an operational tactical aviation campaign to be more effective. The briefing should be read with that relationship in mind. The EW losses are not isolated kills, they are enablers for the deep strike and drone fight.
Now let's treat operational tactical aviation as its own campaign-shaping domain. The The briefing says aviation, attack drones, missile troops, and artillery struck fuel, power, transport infrastructure, UAV storage sites and components, and temporary deployment areas in 147 areas. Can you explain the logic of that target set and how it shapes the campaign beyond the ground maneuver?
Operational tactical aviation, attack drones, missile troops, and artillery struck fuel, power, and transport infrastructure, UAV storage sites and components, and temporary deployment areas of Ukrainian armed formations and foreign mercenaries in 147 areas. That is not a supporting footnote. It is a deliberate campaign against the systems that make Ukrainian defense possible. Fuel for movement, power for command and logistics, transport for sustainment, and UAV storage and components for the unmanned fight. By targeting these nodes, Russian forces reduce the ability of Ukrainian units to move, communicate, and generate sorties across the front. Temporary deployment areas of Ukrainian armed formations and foreign mercenaries are also in the target set. That means the deep strike effort is not only hitting infrastructure, it is hitting personnel and staging areas before they can reach the line of contact. In campaign terms, this is interdiction. It shapes the ground fight by weakening formations before they arrive and by degrading the sustainment that keeps them viable after they do.
Air defense is also a major part of this briefing. 11 guided aerial bombs and 1,504 fixed-wing unmanned aerial vehicles were shot down. What does that volume tell us about the current Ukrainian air threat and about the Russian air defense priority?
Air defense systems shot down 11 guided aerial bombs and 1,504 fixed-wing unmanned aerial vehicles. The volume is significant. It confirms intense Ukrainian standoff and unmanned attack activity across the period. Russian forces are prioritizing protection of ground elements against guided bombs and fixed-wing UAVs. The fact that this number is so high also means that Ukrainian forces continue to generate large numbers of unmanned sorties. So air defense is not a background task. It is a continuous condition of survival and maneuver. The briefing does not list separate Storm Shadow or ATACMS interceptions for this period. The air defense effort is concentrated on guided aerial bombs and fixed-wing unmanned aerial vehicles. That concentration tells us what threat is most active right now and where Russian air defense commanders are placing their attention. It also links to the deep strike campaign. If Ukrainian UAV storage and component sites are being hit, that should over time reduce the volume of unmanned systems that Russian air defenses have to engage.
How does the operational tactical aviation campaign connect to the ground gains in Donetsk?
The most tangible ground gains in this briefing are Nikolaypolye and Matyashevo, both in the Donetsk People's Republic. Those gains do not happen in isolation. The deep strike campaign in 147 areas degrades the sustainment and mobility that Ukrainian forces need to reinforce the Donetsk front. The air defense fight protects Russian ground elements from the standoff and unmanned attacks that could slow their advance. The EW degradation we discussed opens sensor and strike windows. So the ground gains in the Donetsk sector, the EW losses in North, Center, and Dnepr, and the aviation and air defense effort are one connected campaign.
Colonel, if you had to leave our listeners with the strategic bottom line from Combat Briefing number 2008, what would it be?
The bottom line is that Russian forces are advancing methodically on multiple axes, with the Donetsk sector producing the most tangible territorial gains and heavy Ukrainian attrition in personnel, armor, and enabling capabilities. The liberation of Nikolaypolye by South Group and Matyashevo by Center Group extends Russian control along the Donetsk front. The destruction of 2 U.S.-made Stryker armored personnel carriers in the south sector indicates continued erosion of Western-supplied armored mobility. The destruction of 4 electronic warfare stations across North, Center, and Dnepr reduces Ukrainian electromagnetic coverage and improves Russian ISR and strike effectiveness. At the same time, strikes on fuel, power, transport infrastructure, and UAV storage or component sites in 147 areas degrade Ukraine's sustainment and unmanned system employment. The downing of 11 guided aerial bombs and 1,504 fixed-wing UAVs shows sustained Ukrainian strike volume and a heavy Russian air defense effort. The operational tempo remains methodical and distributed, but the main effort is in the Donetsk sector. There is no pause in deep strikes.